Despite the recent losses, it's been another exciting Carolina football season, led by the nation's third most prolific offense. So, how do we make sense of it all and what's still to come? I tell you, it's always nice to have someone who's been in the trenches doing it, and that's what we got today.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, November 17th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and I want to thank you everydayers for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch to get your favorite Tar Heels content every single day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. If you'd like to be a bigger part of this Locked On Tar Heels community, come join our Discord where we're talking Carolina content all day long. Sometimes it's about games. Earlier today, someone asked me what shirt I was wearing. Anything under the sun might happen in there. Now, coming up on today's show, want to make sure to let you know we actually have two full shows out today. The other one is going to be a preview of Carolina's basketball game tonight against UC Riverside. But today we're talking Carolina football on here and Carolina women's basketball. To help us do that is former Carolina offensive lineman, Mr. Brian Chacos, who's finding space for us. He's like, I had to come to you from the car so we don't have screaming children and coworkers. That is my man. Finding it, making it happen. Chacos, you're so resourceful. Thanks for making it work, brother.
Isaac, always good to be with you, buddy. Long time, no speak to, but via texting, though. But good to be chatting with you, my man, and great to be back on the show.
Yes, thank you. Now, listen, folks, we're going to get to Carolina women's basketball in a little bit. This man is a courtside season ticket holder, right, making life miserable for the refs, and you love to see it. But here's where we got to start. Chacos, man, you've been through the highs and lows of playing on a college football team. We'll talk about you experiencing the highs and lows of playing against Clemson here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just want to ask you to help us who haven't done it and been in it and been in the locker room, all that, to make sense of this kind of football season, kind of so similar to last year, right? Like you have this great start and then you have what feels like kind of inexplicable losses to Virginia and Georgia Tech back to back. So how do you kind of recalibrate the season? How do you find the motivation and what is it going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a good thought, but listen, we're still 8-2 and we're still feeling really good. And we just came off an incredible fight against Duke, an incredible fist fight in Kenan Stadium, and could not be happier for our students and our student athletes, obviously, on Saturday night, but more importantly, the students. I mean, how awesome was it seeing them storming the field at Kenan, especially last home game for these seniors, possibly Drake Maye too. And that is just what college athletics is all about. And being a former Letterman alumni, son of a Letterman too, it's really special for Carolina football. And those are some of the moments Saturday night that we'll be able to play over and over for the next 10, 20, 30 years when you look at the history of Carolina Duke football and that rivalry and that matchup. But, talking about recalibrating the season, and again, I know what you're trying to get at. The Virginia and Georgia Tech loss, that's not a good, those were not good performances by us. And I know the fan base is really disappointed about those two games. But I can tell you we have a lot of football left. Obviously, a huge, huge opportunity for us to go into Death Valley, a place that's not been friendly to us, and get a big-time win for this program. Obviously we have some goals. It might be a long shot, but ending up at Charlotte and playing the ACC Championship game, some chips got to fall some certain ways for us to be there. Getting double-digit wins is something that we really want to do as a football program. Keep building on that momentum and finishing up with a really, really strong season. So obviously you look at this big-time opportunity here against Clemson. We know how good Clemson's defense is. Obviously, they've had some difficulties on the offense side of the ball. And then not overlooking Clemson, but obviously then the hated rivalry matchup in Raleigh. That's something where as a Carolina football player, you'll never be able to not look ahead and see that you have NC State's right in your depth. That game is really close. But again, I know how excited our guys are to go to Clemson this weekend and play in front of a great crowd, national television. And that's just going to be such a great opportunity for them to showcase this program.
Thank you, Chacos, for unpacking that, because I think it's, as fans on the outside looking in, and the reason I use recalibrating is because I think people feel like, oh man, and there still is, as you said, this chance to make the ACC championship game. We're all huge Miami fans this weekend, oddly enough.
Yeah.
But I think that's the mindset, is like, oh shoot, we're probably not going to make the ACC championship game. It's all over. But it's like, this 3-game stretch goes such a long way to determining how we feel about the season. Carolina obviously took care of round 1 of that in that ridiculous game against Duke. And now is a massive opportunity to take the second step in that journey against Clemson. And so I think that's my next question, Chacos, is, man, if you can take care of this 3-game stretch and those final 2 games you talked about of the regular season at both Clemson and State, how does that erase or at least change the feelings of what we all felt coming out of Virginia and Georgia Tech by winning this epic stretch of Duke, Clemson, State?
Yeah, I think it definitely takes some of the sourness out of your mouth a little bit from those two losses. There's no doubt about it. But again, there's nothing we can do about the games that we've played, but we can do something about this weekend and next weekend. So, again, it's something where I'm still upset about the Virginia and Georgia Tech game. But again, what we can do from a fan base and from a support staff role with us at the Rams Club and athletic department is we can support Coach Brown. We support these players who've done an exceptional job of bouncing back, staying laser focused on the goal. And that's being 1-0 each week. And I know it's coach speak and kind of that's, people are sick of hearing that kind of thing. But at the same time, right, we got a huge opportunity, right? The last time we won, and you and I are talking, before the show, last time we won down in Death Valley was 0-1. So it's been a really long time since we've had a good performance down there. You and I were kind of chuckling before. I've been on both sides of that coin down there in Death Valley. I've been on an 0-1 team with Julius Peppers and Ryan Sims, and it's really nice to have those guys on your D line where you can go in and play Woody Dantzler, a Heisman Trophy candidate, and really, really disrupt him and see 80,000 Clemson fans empty the stadium in 0-1. And then I was our left tackle on the 0-6 team and be on the pounding side of that team down in Death Valley. So I've been on both sides of that Clemson trip. And I can tell you the 0-1 side is way more fun than the 0-6 side was. So that's something I want our guys to experience, is the 0-1 feeling and not the 0-6 feeling. But, again, it's something where we got to just be really focused on this Saturday, really focused on the preparation, really focused on, to me, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but, their front seven, the Clemson front seven is one of the most talented groups in the country. Their 2 linebackers are probably, and I love Ced Gray to death. I think Ced Gray is a great young man, a great player, but I think their 2 linebackers are probably the 2 best in the ACC, if not
national,
probably top 5 in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just phenomenal ball players. And so we really got to do a good job on the offensive line and our tight ends as well, of being able to try and control those front seven as best as possible. And so, again, it comes down to assignment football, putting a hat on a hat, and just doing the best you can in a really, really tough environment, because it's going to be loud. It's going to be hectic. When you see those boys coming down the hill and the balloons are all released, it's going to be chaotic. It's a lot like Enter Sandman at Lane Stadium. It's a very similar kind of disruptive feeling. So our guys just got to be ready for it.
Yep, and we saw how disruptive that could be, that first game of Sam Howell's final year on a Friday night, as Carolina couldn't quite take care of business there. I'm just waiting for Dabo to trip coming down the hill, Chacos. We'll see how that goes. Now, we do want to get into previewing that game a little more specifically, but I also want to talk to Chacos in just a minute about appreciating this ridiculous offense while it's still around before potentially Drake Maye is out the door. We're going to get to that conversation in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by Prize Picks. Look, you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz? Well, you can now find community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. With the basketball season here, you can now even pick combo projections across different sports, like a basketball player and a football player combined receptions and three-pointers made, like LeBron and Travis Kelce or something like that. So Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For example, Drake Maye's passing yards is set at 270.5 this weekend, and Omarion Hampton's rushing yards at 89.5. Boy, we are looking for the more on both of those. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Chacos, we've kind of touched on the Clemson game a little bit. We'll get more specifically into it in a second. But here's what I want to ask you kind of at a big picture level before we do that. This offense, man, it is one of the most prolific offenses Carolina has ever seen or ever known. Currently, it is the third most prolific offense in the nation in terms of total offense. Omarion Hampton, second in the nation in terms of rush yards per game and total. Drake is fourth in the nation in total passing yards, third in passing. I mean, just I could go on and on. How do we appreciate this thing while it's still happening?
I think, again, it's a week by week thing. I think we can take it in totality. I think we can be appreciative of it for the 10 games we've had it so far. But I think we just need to sit back Saturday and enjoy it. Enjoy it in a really fun atmosphere against, again, a top 10 defense in the country. That's going to be a hell of an environment. I think we've got to really be thankful for the kind of quality young man that Drake Maye is. Omarion Hampton, his development from year one when he fumbled against Clemson, the ACC Championship game, to where he is now has just been light years of development. So I'm so proud of that young guy. To really, Tez Walker's story this year, from the NCAA to the injuries to everything that kid has been through, to really how our tight ends have developed, our offensive line cohesion. Really, that's been really fun to watch. So I give Chip Lindsey a ton of credit. Randy Clements, I give him a ton of credit as well. Big Freddie Kitchens is a guy who I love. He's got a great personality. So really as a whole unit, I think the UNC offensive unit as a whole, from coaches to players, has just been unbelievable. I'm really proud of them. They've done a great job. And again, what a better 2-week stretch you have to showcase what you got than at Clemson, at NC State. So, we know we're going to a bowl game. What quality of bowl game we're going to? Can we be in the ACC Championship game and sneak in? Possibly, but who cares about that? And I know our fans are going to say, well, yeah, we should care about that. Take care of Clemson. That's all we need to do. Take care of Clemson. Let the other stuff figure itself out. And so, again, couldn't be more proud of Coach Brown. What an incredible leader of our program. And I feel very fortunate. He's our head coach and doing a great job and really, really breathing a ton of energy and life into this program from where we were 4 or 5 short years ago.
That's right. That's all so well said, Brian. Thank you for that. Before we get to Clemson, I got one other question that people have been hammering me on, trying to figure out like what's going on. And that is all the holding calls that Carolina has been getting penalized for recently at seemingly the worst times, right? Like it feels like there've been about approximately 85 touchdowns called back because of holding penalties. You are someone who obviously, being a lineman, is very familiar with the ins and outs and nuances of it. So is it Carolina just getting caught? Is it just weird holding? Like what is the situation with the holding, Chacos? Help solve this mystery.
No, there's no mystery, Isaac. Everyone holds every play. And if they tell you any different, they're lying to you. So when you're a 300 and 15 pound, 6'5", 315-pound man playing against a very skillful, athletic, 6'3", 6'4", 280, 275-pound guy who can run significantly faster than you, can bend, can do all these different things, and you are not as athletic as them, you have to find an advantage. And one of those advantages is going to be holding them. So those, and if any lineman is being truthful with you, more than likely they're holding on about 90% of their plays. So yes, our fans can say, the holding calls and all these different things. Their offensive line is holding on 90% of the calls as well. There is one of those things that it's an unwritten rule. The refs understand it. They know it. They see it. And they're only going to call something that is absolutely egregious. I would compare it to almost like in basketball where, you see someone hand checking or you see someone palming the ball a little bit to get a better crossover. They're not going to call that unless it's absolutely egregious. Or we could call that every single time down the court. So it's the same thing with playing offensive line and that offensive line, defensive line relationship when it comes to holding.
That's great stuff. I like to compare it to I grew up on the south side of Atlanta, and my dad always told me it was a great disservice because it's like everyone's going 15 over and the cop just like randomly picks one person to call out.
No doubt about it.
You know what I mean? It's like that same kind of thing. Like, I'm going to call holding on this guy on this one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The white Camry is going to get nailed or whatever. Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. Thank you for unpacking that. Okay, let's get into this thing. Carolina versus Clemson, Saturday, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. FanDuel has the line at Clemson favored by 6.5. The Tigers lead the all-time series 39-19 and one tie. Hard to believe, but Dabo's been there since the midway point of the 2008 season when Tommy Bowden resigned. Crazy stuff there. So, Chacos, we've talked about this 3-game stretch. It's going to ultimately determine kind of how we all feel about this season. Carolina did the work last week, and as you've been saying, now was the next one game to take care of. We've talked about it. You went back. Carolina hasn't won at Death Valley since 2001. Have lost 4 straight games there. Heels have lost 5 straight in the series to Clemson. What's it going to take to turn this thing around? Chacos and I are going to give you 4 things we're watching for, 2 each. So, Chacos, give me your first thing that you are watching for in this game.
Omarion Hampton has to run over 150 yards on the ground.
Love it.
And we are going to have at least 3 sacks to disrupt Cade Klubnik. When Cade Klubnik is pressured and has disruption around him or pressure in his face, he is a very average quarterback. He just is. I mean, you look at any of the SP Plus percentages. When he is pressured, when he is sacked, when he is disrupted and flushed out of the pocket, he's just ordinary. When you allow him to sit in the pocket, when you allow him to use his feet, any kind of broken down plays, he's just going to beat you. And that's where this I call him the new Clemson team that we've seen basically the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
They've done a much better job of keeping Cade really clean, not letting him getting hit a ton. The pocket's been much better. Their offensive line they were kind of horrendous at the beginning of the year. They just were not very good. I mean, Duke beat them up really badly. And I know it was the first game of the year, but Duke really stuck it to them. And so their offensive line has improved significantly. They've been able to run the ball. They got 2 dynamic running backs, obviously. And so I think it's one of those things we have to establish a run over 150 yards with Omarion.
Love it.
And then we have to get after Cade. We gotta really disrupt him. So I think it's going to take us at least 3 sacks to get after him.
I love it. I love you putting the specificity on those numbers.
Yeah.
That helps give everyone stuff to watch for. My first thing that I'm watching for is 2 things in the passing game. Number 1, Nate McCollum's confidence. I know after those the drops several weeks ago, and then just that miss on what would have been that touchdown late last week, man, just right there in his hand. I mean, a tough catch to be sure, but just want to see good things happen for this young man, who's actually from right by my hometown. We talked about on the south side of Atlanta. Dutchtown High School is like 5 minutes. No, he didn't go to Dutchtown. Who did? Anyway, whatever.
Well, he's a Georgia Tech guy, so close enough. Right.
Yeah, close enough, right? But then the other is watching Bryson Nesbitt's continued emergence. Man, this dude has been on the uptick the last several weeks, making big catch after big catch in the passing game. On critical moments, he has been so reliable. Really interested to see how Drake continues to look his way and continue to mix it up around the various receivers. So Nate McCollum's confidence, Bryson Nesbitt's continued emergence. Chacos, what's your second thing that you are watching for?
So again, Omarion with the yardage, and I'm going to say again with the 3 sacks, but I'll give you another one. We're going to have to continue to be able to flip the field. So our kicking game is going to have to be really, really on point. I know we basically have 3 new kickers, right? A field goal kicker, a kickoff specialist, and now new punter. So I'm telling you, the noise situation in Death Valley is an issue.
Wow.
I remember having to go on silent count, holding hands with my left guard, because you can't hear the cadence. That's just, and I know Drake, they clap hands to snap the ball. It is going to be so loud there. And so look, obviously we're going to be punting the ball on occasion. So getting a good punt, flipping the field advantage, and then obviously making our field goals. We were fantastic of doing that on Saturday, and making sure that's still obviously something that we get done on this Saturday against Clemson. Make sure those 3 points are so valuable in a big time game like this. It's got to. Noah Burnett did a fantastic job on Saturday, and it's got to continue.
Yeah, that's so well said. Yeah, that was going to be one of my potential things was a clean special teams day for Carolina, especially after a couple of hiccups last Saturday against Duke, and Coach Elko, to his credit, pulling out some nice moments there. For my second thing to watch for, you already referenced that front 7 of Clemson, but I think Carolina's offensive line against Clemson's defensive line is a critical matchup to watch in this one. Last year, Drake just threw for 268 yards, but one of the few games in his career where he hasn't had a passing touchdown and threw 2 picks.
Right.
And I think that is offset this year by the true complementary football that Carolina now has because of the emergence of Omarion that you already talked about. And so for me, it's about Carolina's offensive line being able to clear the way, keep both Drake upright, and continue creating those great holes between the tackles, because that's where Omarion's strength is, to run through and just wear down Clemson as the game goes on. So I'm going to be watching for that as well. Carolina O-line versus the Duke defensive line. So, Chacos, let's make a prediction on this game. Clemson, as I said, favored by 6.5. I'll go first and then give you the last word in kind of a Coach Corso sort of way here. I'm going Carolina 34, Clemson 33. The Tar Heels win by 1 on a Noah Burnett field goal as time expires, stunning that Death Valley crowd, a silence that would never have been more beautiful. Chacos, that's my call. What are you going with in this game?
Yeah, I absolutely love the call. And my final prediction is I've good guys 31, bad guys 28. And here's my third key. And I know you didn't ask for a third key. But
I want it. Bring it.
Third key. I referenced this earlier in the show, but the initial emotional onslaught that's going to come from Clemson, and the parallel is the Enter the Sandman from Virginia Tech, and the emotional roller coaster that comes from their fans. And when Clemson takes the bus around the stadium, and the anticipation on the Jumbotron, and the buildup from the fan base, and when the players and Dabo run down the hill and they release the balloons and the cannons go off and all the excitement, can our guys weather the storm, and can they get through the first, I'll say, 8 minutes of the first quarter?
Okay.
And can you just get through the first 8 minutes of the quarter with calming the game down, calming your emotions down, not getting too overexcited, and just going out and playing Carolina football. Okay. And Carolina football is running the football, having Drake Maye do Drake Maye things. And then on defense, let's just get after them, right? No one expects us to win this game. Okay. Except for you and I, as our predictions have shown. No one outside of Carolina fans expect us to win this game, right? Pin your ears back, go get the quarterback, and really just kind of create havoc. right? Have fun with this great opportunity to get a big time road win and just go get it. So that would really be my advice to the guys. If I was in the locker room, is just say, hey, these first 8 minutes, keep your nerves calm, just play our game, do your responsibilities to the best of your ability. And then after that, let's just go have fun and just do our thing.
Man, that's such a good call, Chacos. We talk about like how much is Cameron Indoor Stadium worth? How many points is Death Valley worth? And
Yeah, no doubt.
you have to mitigate. You can't let that environment be worth 7 points in Clemson's favor. Carolina has to make that worth 0 points and stay steeled through the first half of the first quarter. I love that. Great call, my man. All right, folks, we're going to switch from the gridiron to the basketball court, going inside Carmichael and talk about the excitement around Carolina women's basketball this season. Ladies are off to a 3-0 start, a big-time stretch coming up in the next couple of weeks. Lucky for us today, we're talking not only to a former offensive lineman for the Tar Heels, but a courtside season ticket holder who is locked in on all of Carolina women's basketball action. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by our friends at Athletic Brewing. Hey, it's time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Armando Bacot's ridiculous performance last Sunday against Lehigh, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make these non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good, full flavor, and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. Seriously, Bacot, 22 points, 20 boards, his third career 2020 game, and 6 of 6 from the free throw line. I mean, what are we talking about here? You love to see it. Hopefully, Armando keeps it rolling all season long. Athletic Brewing has over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden, sours, and more. And these brews are fit for all times. You can drink them anytime, anywhere, maybe even while you're sitting back next week watching some Carolina women's basketball. Make that more enjoyable. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. Again, that's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Chacos, Carolina women's basketball off to a 3-0 start this year. And what I want to look at first is it's really similar to the men's team, where they got this super intriguing mix of returners, of freshmen, of transfers. What are you seeing of this mix so far? Who surprised you? Who needs to step up? What are you catching from this neat mix that Coach Banghart has this year?
Yeah, well, nobody needs to step up because they're all stepping up.
That's absolutely right.
That answers that. But my excitement is through the roof, man. I am beside myself with how excited I am about these Lady Tar Heels. I mean, they are a fun group to watch. They hustle, they're tough, they're athletic, they're so fundamentally gifted, and they're just a really true pleasure to watch playing Carmichael. They're great human beings, and they're really such great role models for our young people in town. So it's really been a true pleasure to get to watch them, get to know them, and really fun to get to support them. I really encourage your listeners and our fans out there to come to Carmichael, buy tickets and support them. We have some huge contests in Carmichael this year, especially in November. I mean, we have South Carolina, who I think is ranked number 1 right now. They moved up in the rankings with some shuffling of the deck here. So they're now ranked number 1, and they're here on Thursday, November 30th at 7 p.m. And that's going to be an unbelievable contest. If you've ever seen Carmichael filled to the brim, the acoustics in there, we've got a new video board, new ribbon boards, new lighting, new sound system. It is just one of the premier iconic venues to see an athletic event. And so, it is just a great team to support. And obviously, my wife and I are very dear friends with Coach Banghart and her wife, TJ, and are fully on board to support them.
And it's so fun. Like, the fact that it goes so far beyond the in-game action, I think is what makes me appreciate Coach Banghart and this entire program so much.
Yep.
And I love how intertwined you guys are with it and what
Yep.
advocates you are for it. And this thing is just on this trajectory that I don't see slowing down or stopping anytime soon.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
And Isaac, not to interrupt you, I mean,
You're good.
we don't either. And to tell you the truth, I mean, the basketball part is fun. Don't get me wrong, but it really is more about the off court stuff. It's really more about the relationships and getting to know these young people, helping them, because basketball is going to stop for these young people at some point. Right. And so it's about the Carolina connections and the network and being part of their life. I mean, it's one of, when we talk to our two young kids, it's educating them on what it's like to be a Division I athlete and them going to school and, playing in front of crowds and, dealing with all these different things and how you have such great role models. You have 15 of them right now on the roster that are managing all these different expectations and things and lives and families they're all great natural resources for you right here on campus. So again, the basketball part is so fun, but the human element of it is what really makes it special. So
well said. That's so good. Now, one of the things I'm really enjoying watching the offense specifically early in the season is just how balanced it is, Chacos. There's 5 players averaging double figures right now. Deja Kelly leading the way at 14.7. But you got Maria Gokding, Lexi Donarski, Paulina Paris stepping up as a sophomore now. And Alyssa Utsby is the 5th leading scorer. I mean, good grief, dude, right? Like, and then you got India right behind at 9. So you got 6 players averaging 9 or more points per game. How are you seeing that offensive balance really help what the offensive attack is doing?
Well, I think it's just one of those things. If you look at last season, I mean, we relied so heavily on Deja and Alyssa to perform every, and that's just not fair to those two. So we have needed to become more balanced, and that's what we have this year. And that's the great thing. I mean, we finally have a true center with Maria. I mean, Maria is a true post-presence center where she's 6'3", 6'4", has inside moves, is a rebounder, shot blocker. And she is so incredibly talented. It is. I mean, I knew she was good at Boston College, but then watching her at a couple practices and then just seeing how dynamic she is and her footwork is absolutely incredible. How awesome she has been. Anya Poole too. I mean, I've known Anya for a few years now, and how great she is. So she is going to add to that depth inside. And then Alyssa is just special. I mean, Alyssa is just. I call her the workhorse. I mean, she is up and down, up and down, up and down. She is an incredible athlete, super gifted, just a really, really talented player. You can say Deja is going to do Deja Kelly things, right? I mean, she's like Drake kind of, she's going to do Drake Maye things. Deja is going to be Deja and really is just going to be that kind of steady Eddie player who's going to do her game. She's going to get her shots and she's going to be really successful in doing that. So we're lucky to have that kind of ringleader marquee player like Deja. Lexi has, she's blown me away of how good of a defender and, really floor leader. Watching her talk to her teammates on the floor has been something I haven't really seen in a couple of years. Eva Hodgson last year and the year before that was really, really good at doing that. I mean, Eva was a communicator, was really a good defensive presence. And I think Lexi has picked up right there and kind of brought that really that same kind of leadership and personality and really has stepped that up even more. So really proud of Lexi. Even after 3 games, she's done an unbelievable job. Paulina has matured incredibly well. She's gotten stronger in the weight room. She's improved her shot. She's improved her ball handling. So she has done a tremendous job. So again, I mean, I could go down the line and talk about a single player.
Honestly.
As well. I mean, India, I was joking with my dad and my mom, who obviously sit close to the floor too and are right there in the action. I mean, India could be the Swiss Army knife of all of the players. I mean, she can rebound, she can block shots, she can shoot the 3, she can dribble. I mean, so we have been really lucky, and it's just a kind of a tip of the hat to Courtney and her staff, where they really knew what they needed to do in the transfer portal and how to improve this team. And they've gone ahead and addressed each area, right? So we needed a ball handler and a senior defensive leader and a graduate student who has some leadership, right? And that's Lexi. And Lexi has 2 years, right? So this year and next year. And really give us that leadership that we need to replace. And Lexi is that person. And then you have India, who's got a few years, but she's so talented and multifaceted, right? And then you have Maria, who's got that inside presence, that post presence, shot blocker, rebounder, but is so athletic for being able to run the floor. There's not going to be too many 4 and 5s who can run with Maria. So in the ACC. So it's really, really exciting what Courtney's done with this roster.
Gosh, it's so fun. So Lady Tar Heels have one more home game against Elon tomorrow, tipping off like 30 minutes before the football game, before they head down to Florida for the Gulf Coast Showcase. And then coming back after that, the next 2 of the next 3 games after that are that South Carolina game that Chacos talked about, and then UConn. So big time challenges. Chacos, here's my last question on the women's basketball team right now. What is it going to take the next step in terms of both ACC success and getting beyond the Sweet 16 to the Elite 8 and in the NCAA tournament? And whatever that is, does this Carolina team have that?
Yeah, I think this Carolina team does have it. I was watching them play against Hampton, and I know we can say, well, it's against Hampton. And there were some things that I saw against them that I just hadn't seen in the really 4 years of watching this program really closely. And it's the older leadership on the team. It's the consistent 3-point shooting, and it's the creation of shots, where I think in the past we haven't had people who can create their own shots as frequently. And then this year, our depth. So I know I just listed a couple things there, but this is obviously Courtney's deepest team she's had. This is the most senior laden and leadership filled team she's had. And I think we need to find a way to, I think really one of the pathways for us is we need to host a regional. That would be really helpful as well for us. But I truly believe that Courtney is ready to take a big time step, a really big time step. I feel good about where we stack up in the ACC to make a really good run in the ACC women's basketball tournament. So all the pieces are there. We need to get a couple of our kids healthy. I think we need to get Anya healthy. We need to get Sione back whenever those recovery dates are. But this is the best team that I've felt about in a long time. And I'm really proud of Courtney and her staff and what they've done.
That's all so well said. Tar Heels ranked 17th in the nation right now, looking to just keep on trucking. Make sure you check them out tomorrow, Saturday, hosting Elon before heading down to Florida. Brian Chacos, brother, thank you so much for coming to us from the Chacos Mobile. Great to be with you, and we need to make it shorter time in between talking on the podcast than we did from last time.
You got it, buddy.
Love it. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in with us. Again, make sure you check out today's other episode where we'll preview Carolina men's basketball game that is tonight against UC Riverside before they get into their tournament next weekend, next week on Thanksgiving week down in Atlantis. You can follow the show on Twitter, Locked On Heels. Make sure to follow Brian and I. You get some great content there. And subscribe to the show on video and audio. Smash the like button if you're watching, and we'd love to hear your comments on today's episode. Once again, come join us on the Discord. We'd love to chat with you, and there are lots going on all the time. Folks, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Can't wait to talk to you again this weekend after the football game. But until then, peace.